Today's message is titled A Story of Christmas. It will not be like any other message that probably you have heard, because what I'm going to do is the story of Christmas told from the viewpoint of what we call divine counsel. And that is, we are going to go all the way from Genesis. We'll move all the way up. And along the line, I think I'll have to cut it short. So the first thing we are going to look at is Genesis 1:26 and see what happened. I made them put two versions here, King James and then ESV. King James so that Pastor will be happy. And, and ESV, that is what it's a little bit softer than King James, but at least you see the two so that you have a better idea. Then God said, let us make man in our own image after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the heavens, and over the livestock, and over all the earth, and every creeping thing that creeps on earth. If you look at this message, the first thing that God says is, let us make man in our own image. And then it goes out and say, let them do that, that, and that. Many a times when we said, or we hear the message, God made man in his own image, we tend to think about the abilities of man as compared to probably animals, and say this is the image of God. And that is because we don't really look at the Bible carefully. If we look at it, it says, God said, let us make man in our own image after our likeness. And then he started defining what that means. And what does that mean? He says, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of heaven, and over the livestock, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth. So what is God saying here? I'm going to make man in my own image, and the purpose of it is they have to rule the world. They have to be my under representative, if I can say it that way. So the image of God itself is the status that God has given to men here on earth, to us, to rule the earth. But then with that comes all the qualities that we have, like logical qualities, thinking, relationship with God, all that comes in because we need that to be able to do the job or the status that God has given to us. So we, as the children of God, the original plan of God is we'll be his representatives on earth. So we are the image of God. In another word, we should be the administrators of this earth. And if you want to have an idea, God said, let us make man. Also here, when we hear let us make man, we tend to think God is talking about the Trinity. But it's more than that. The Trinity may be involved in that sense, but God never refers to himself plural. He always uses singular when he's talking to himself, in that case, to the Trinity. But in many cases, he says, let us. So let us go to Job and see what is really happening, what is referred to as the divine counsel, which you will see shortly. So let's see Job 38, 4-7. So bear in mind, the purpose of God is humans to be administrators on earth. God has a similar parallel things in the spiritual world, who are supposed to be the administrators of the spiritual world. And what God does is he rules the world through, or the universe through these two, what I would say, groups, if I should put it that way. Where were you when I laid the foundation of the earth? Here God is talking to Job. You know all the problems that Job went through. And Job was complaining that when he sees God, he's going to question him. So when he met God, God said this, where were you when I laid the foundation of the earth? Tell me if you have understanding. Let's move to the next verse, please. Who determined the measurements? Surely you know. Or who stretched its line upon it? On what were its bases sunk? Or who laid its cornerstone? When the morning stars sang, and together all the sons of God shouted for joy. This is where we come in. Now, when God was creating the earth, when he says, let us make, he was there with what is known as the sons of God, what the Hebrew will say, Bene Elohim, or the children of God. And if you look at the Bible very well, that is where God is bringing us to, so that we are called sons of God. In that case, to tie into the original plan, to be still his administrators. The idea is God was going to rule through us. He was going to make the decisions and we will carry them out. So here we have the sons of God who were happy, singing, when God was making the earth. And it also referred to them as the morning stars. And the idea of the morning stars comes from the Semitic world, that when the day is coming in, they used to see a bright star, which more or less is the star which is bringing in the day, which means that is one who is going to determine what the day is. So here the idea is also given to us that these morning stars, they are those whom God is going to rule through. And before we move on, so that you see the idea explicitly where the divine counsel comes in, let's look at shortly at Psalm 82, I think the verse 1. He says, and God has taken his place in his divine counsel. In the midst of the gods, he holds judgment. Don't move, leave it here for now. We'll come back to this later on. So here is trying to give us a picture. How does God do? Whenever he's going to do something, he sits down in his council and then make the decrees. So most of the time he will say, let us. And after that he said, God did something. And what is happening? The council is supposed to carry out his orders. This council, the members of this council, are supposed to be spiritually very high entities. That is the reason why Jude and Peter was warning people in terms of trying to bind the devil. And then he was saying even Michael, the archangel, did not want to do that because these are not ordinary angels. These are super high angels. And unfortunately, the devil was one of them and who defected. So that is why when we are dealing with the devil, we have to be very careful. Jesus is the one who knows exactly how to deal with him, not us. So everything will have to go through Jesus. Now let us go to Genesis chapter 2, verse 10 to 14. Another idea is going to come out here, and that idea which is used mainly in the Bible, one is mountain, and another one is the garden. The mountain normally refers to the domain of the gods, that where God sits and the Bene Elohim are, which means the sons of God are where God rules. So that is the picture it gives. And another thing too is, refers to the garden. The garden also signifies the abode of God, where God stays, and then where the divine council meets. Because wherever God comes, that is where the divine council is going to meet. And so Eden, as we see it, probably let me read it. A river flowed out of Eden to water the garden, and there it is divided and became 4 rivers. The name of the first is the Pishon or Pishon, whatever it is. It is the one that flowed around the whole land of Havilah, where the gold is. And the gold of the land is good. The lilium and onyx stones are there. The name of the second river is Gihon. It is the one that flowed around the whole land of Cush or Kush. And the name of the third river is the Tigris, which flows east of Assyria. And the fourth river is Euphrates. So here, Eden is being depicted as a garden where the water flows, the rivers around it, with the gold over there, which is signifying this is where God's presence is. So what God actually did was he put Adam and Eve in the garden of Eden, which was a part that he has created, to be a place where he's going to rule the world from. That is where he's going to give the command to human beings who are supposed to be his images, who are supposed to be administer the earth, and then rule from there. So this was it. And it's supposed to be a well-watered place. And that is the Garden of Eden that God has given us. If we look at, let's go quickly and look at a very short thing that I think Ezekiel, Ezekiel 28. I'll come and we'll read the whole thing, but I want us to look at a very small part of it. Ezekiel 28, let's look at, okay, let's read all later on. I can, from verse 11. Moreover, the word of the Lord came to me. Son of man, raise a lamentation over king of Tyre and say to him, thus says the Lord God, you were the singlet of perfection, full of wisdom and perfect in beauty. Here, God was talking about king of Tyre, and he was going to give us a glimpse of what was happening in the spiritual realm. So let's move on. I said you should give me the two. I want the ESV. Okay, let me read it from here then. It says, you were the singlet of perfection, full of wisdom and perfect in beauty. You were in Eden, the garden of God. So that is where it comes in. Eden represents the garden of God, where God comes with his counsel and rules. So here, he was talking about Satan here. He was in the garden of God. He was one of the Beni Elohim, one of the sons of God, a member of the divine council. And what did he do? He says that he was a special person in that sense. You were in Eden, the garden of God. Every precious stone was your covering. Sardius, topaz, diamond, beryl, onyx, jasper, sapphire, emerald, carbuncle. Whatever. Okay, maybe I butchered it like Asari, but that is fine. Crafted in gold were your settings and your engravings. On the day that you were created, they were prepared. So here is God is giving us a picture that the person or the entity he's talking about was a special entity that he made. Let's move on to the next verse. You were an anointed guardian cherub. I placed you. You were on the holy mountain of God, and in the midst of the stones of fire we walked. So what was happening here? He was given a special assignment. He was the one who was covering the throne of God. And some theologians put it this way, because of the brilliance of God, he was the one trying to absorb the light of God so that it make it comfortable for the divine counsel even to sit in front of God. So which means he was special, and God has given him everything needed was to be able to do that. So he was in the mountain of God. That is the place where God stays and rules the universe. And in the midst of the stones of fire, let's move on. You were blameless in all your ways from the day that you were created until unrighteousness was found in you. In the abundance of your trade, you were filled with violence, and in the midst, and you sinned. So I cast you as a profane thing from the mountain of God and destroy you, O guardian cherub, from the midst of the stones of fire. So let's stop it here. The idea that we have here is God rules through his counsel, his divine counsel, and it's at times referred to as the family of God. And that is where God is trying to bring us to. That is his original plan, which has been foiled. And then God started working on it right at the beginning, trying to do that. We also see the divine counsel at work in Daniel when the decree was made against Nebuchadnezzar. When this decree was made, it's the same thing that God did. He met with the council, he made a proclamation, and things went forward. If we look at, I think it's Ahab, in the Kings, the same thing happened again when they wanted to go to war against Syria. And then all the prophets of the king were giving good report. And then the divine council met again. God asked, who is going to make sure that they fail in this mission, the war they are going to? And we know that one of the angels came and said, I'll do the job. And what was the job? He was going to be a lying spirit in the mouth of Ahab. And God said, okay, go ahead. So in the spiritual world, things are happening. That is the way God wanted to rule through us, through the earth. But unfortunately, our ancestors messed up. And then that is what we have this day today, that Jesus Christ has to come in the final round to get the job done for us. This is also happening in Job. When we look at Job, what happened? It says that there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan also came among them. So here Satan is also, when the divine councils are meeting, which are the sons of God, many Elohim, he also came. Why? Because he had that opportunity also. And I think at that time God has not completely removed every right for him. So he could go there again. And then what did Satan do? When God was praising Job, he said, oh God, you know what? Job is already serving you just because you built a shield around him. You've made him prosperous. Everything is going good for him. If you like, just remove it and let's see. So God said, okay, go ahead. And he went to do everything. And when Job again did not budge, he came back again when divine council met and he said, what? Oh God, you know what? You think if you let sickness come to Job, he's going to curse you to the teeth. And then God gave him that permission. All these things went on, but Job still survived. So that is how it is, so that we get an idea of what the divine counsel is. And now let us come to the garden itself of Eden. When the devil, the serpent, came trying to deceive Eve. So let's go to Genesis 3, 5 to 6. Here, the devil is the one who has come. And I think I heard a joke from Dr. Sari saying that we should fear women because, what was it? Eve saw a talking snake and he was not afraid. All right. If you have an idea of the divine counsel, what you have to realize is the Bible again says what? The devil was one of the beautiful and the craftiest, not the devil, the snake, animals in the universe. But what you have to realize is within the divine counsel, these are spiritual beings. Whenever they want to manifest themselves to humans, they have to come physically. We see that happening several times, which I won't go there much about. I'll mention it shortly. Otherwise, it will take too long. Jesus was always appearing. He was the one who was talking to Abraham. And then he came in the form of the angel of the Lord. Whenever he came physically. When he was going to Sodom and Gomorrah to destroy, he came with the angels, he came physically. So he has to appear physically. So Satan, as a member of the council, just appeared in the form of a snake, and Eve knew it. So it was nothing at all that he is a member of the council. Okay. So if we think, but what he didn't know was probably that he was already a disgraced one, that he was coming to deceive. So he came and then said what? For God knows that when you eat of your eyes will be opened and you'll be like God, knowing good and evil. Let's go to 6. So when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that it was a delight for the eyes, and that the tree was to be desired to make one wise, she took of the fruit and ate, and she also gave some to her husband who was with her and ate. So what happened here? The only test that God gave to mankind was not to eat that fruit. And here a member of the divine council has come and said, oh, you know what? This is a good thing if you do it. And you'll be like God. Meaning that we are trying to prevent God ruling the world through us. And Eve succumbed to the temptation, ate it, and gave it to Adam. And Adam, too, probably didn't want to lose the wife, decided, oh, if he's going, I'm going with her. So he also ate it. And then things went downhill. So what happened after that? We know that after that, God pronounced some curses or some pronouncement on mankind. And what he did was, one of them that he said was, he put Adam and Eve out of the garden and put them to other part of the world, that you are not going to be in my presence anymore, where I have my counsel, where you were supposed to rule the world from. Now you are going to go and suffer for yourself. So that came. And then he also pronounced another curse on the devil. And then he said, he told the devil that he was cursed, but he's going to bring somebody through the woman who would deliver, which means God's plan will still be on track. So that is the way things went from there. And we know the story. Man was driven out, and then God decided to seal the Garden of Eden entirely, that human beings cannot come back, because he has also put something there which will allow man to live if man should have eaten it, and that is the tree of life. So God decided to seal it. Human beings were supposed to die, and once that we had decided that we want to be like God, to do whatever we want without him, we're supposed to live our lives. But God being so merciful that his plan cannot be thwarted, he decided that somebody will come and take care of it from the woman. And the matter didn't end there. The devil was still furious. They were ruling the universe. God has made another set of people, if I should say, to govern the earth. He didn't like it. He thought he has defeated God's purpose, so the images of God are completely out. But that was not the end of it. And I want us to note certain things here. After the curse of the devil, God put the devil very low. That is exactly what we read in Ezekiel. I'll come there and make some comments again on it. So what it meant is the divine council of earth has been defeated. God will no more be able to rule through human beings on this earth. But God made him that Satan will be the lowest of the beasts. What it means is that he has demoted him completely, very low in that sense. That instead of being one who says he wants to rise over the throne of God, that he wants to be the one presiding instead of God, now he was completely cut off from the domain of God. And then what happened is human beings were completely strangled from God, and we're no more mortal. We're no more immortal. We became mortal, meaning that we will die. But God had made the plans already, that humans will be fruitful and multiply, and his plan will still come back to life. And then he made a provision for the salvation of mankind. But the matter didn't end there. Immediately after this, Satan devised a plan to completely wipe out the whole mankind, meaning that the Savior will not come, God's images will not be restored. So what did he do? What he did was he tried to contaminate mankind. And now we see it in Genesis 6, 1-4. Let's move over there and look at it quickly. When man began to multiply on the face of the land, and the daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that the daughters of man were attractive, and they looked at their wives. They took as their wives as they chose. Let's move on. Then the Lord said, my spirit shall not abide in man forever, for his flesh, his days shall be 120 years. And the Nephilims were on the earth in those days, and also afterwards, when the sons of God came into the daughters of man, and they bore children to them. These were the mighty men who were of old, the men of renown. So this is how it comes in. What happens is Satan, we know the story that the devil has been cast out from the council in that sense, and he went with some of the council members. And that is why Paul, is when he's trying to mention, he said we have principalities, we have powers and others. These were, if I can put it, high-level angels who are very powerful. They were all thrown out. So what did they do? They instigated some of them. They came to the earth and married human beings, women, and gave children to them. And then, as the word goes, the children were, the men of them were the men of renown, meaning that they were the mighty warriors, men of renown, and they were really the big guys who were ruling the world. And along the line, you will see it, they refer to them as Rephaims. So if you look at something which happened, why God said that when they went to Canaan, they should eliminate all of them. That is because when God destroyed through the water, things didn't end there. The idea here is human beings trying to get into contact with the rebels of God and then make themselves great. That is how it is. But what happened is they were so contaminated, so God decided, Lord, I'm going to start afresh. I'm going to wipe mankind. And he took Noah and the family. What I was speculating is probably they were not contaminated. So he used the flood to wipe everybody out and then said he was going to start afresh. And if we know that the moment they came out, he just gave the order again, be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. So the idea is God was going to rule through mankind through Noah. But we know what happened. We know the son Nimrod. If I say the son along the line, Nimrod came in. And he wanted to replicate the same thing. He wanted to make himself the man of renown. So they started the Tower of Babel. With the Tower of Babel, we don't see the significance very well, the way it's put up. But that tower, the theologian says it's called ziggurat. And the purpose of it was, it's something that you build where heaven and earth will meet. So what they were trying to do is, we are going to build something, get in touch with the demonic powers, if I can call them, or the angels who are fallen from the divine council, and then make one with them so that we become men of renown again. So this is the idea of Tower of Babel, that we don't see it very well, but let's read it. I have missed mine. If I miss, okay, that is Genesis 11, that's where it is. Genesis 11, 1 to 8. And the whole earth had one language and the same words. And as people migrated from the east, they found a plain in the land of Shinar and settled there. And they said to one another, come, let us make bricks and burn them thoroughly. And they had bricks for stones and bitumen for mortar. Then they said, come, let us build ourselves a city and a tower with its top in the heavens, and let us make a name for ourselves. So this is where they come in. Let us make a tower, let us make ziggurat to the heavens, like an open portal to the demonic world, to the principalities. And then when we get there, so that we can make a name for ourselves, like what was happening initially, when the man of renown, when the angels themselves came directly to earth to contaminate. Now man wants to go back to them and be with them. Then they said, lest we be dispersed over the face of the whole earth. And let's go on. And the Lord came down to see the city and the tower which the children of man had built. Let's go on. And the Lord said, behold, they are one people, and they have all one language. And this is the beginning of what they will do. And nothing that they purpose to do will now be impossible for them. Come, let us go down and confuse their language. So again, God is talking with the divine council let us go now and confuse their language. That is those who were left, so that they may not understand one another. Let's go to the next one. So the Lord dispersed them from there over the face of the earth, and they left off building the city. So when God announced, he came down, and then what did they do? He performed his actions, and they were all dispersed. So the idea of the Tower of Babel, as probably at times we look at it and say, oh, this story, there's nothing in there. There is a lot in there, what they were trying to do. They were trying to get in touch with the demonic world so that neglect God. But something happened which brought in Israel. When this happened, God did something. God decided that he was going to disown the whole world and start afresh with a new type of people. And that's how Israel came in. And this comes in, that was the worldview of the Israelites that they understood very well. And if you look at it, it comes in Deuteronomy 32, 8 and 9. In the English Bible, particularly in King James, the people could not believe that that was what was happening. So they tried to translate it differently, but it still comes out. It says, so the Lord is, Deuteronomy 32. It says, when the Most High divided to the nations their inheritance, so this is where it is happening, that is happening in Babel. God decided, okay, you people of the world, I'm going to give you to the divine council members who have revolted against us. And those are now Paul refers to as principalities and powers and so forth. When he separated the sons of Adam, he set the bounds of the people according to the number. I told you I want both of them. According to the number of the children of Israel. Let's say, but the Lord's portion, okay, move back and give me, I want to see both of them. Move back one verse. When the Most High gave to the nations their inheritance, when he divided mankind, he fixed the borders of the people according to the number of the sons of God. So he's fixing them according to the number of Beni Elohim. That is the Greek phrase that is used. And when King James looked at it, they could not believe that that was really what it is. So they changed it to the children of Israel. But fortunately, we still have the original ones and the ones that the Jews themselves translated, the Septuagint. So which is Beni Elohim, the sons of God. So the idea which comes in from the Jewish worldview was when the Tower of Babel happened, this is what God did. He said, hey, you people, you don't want me? You want to get in touch with this Beni Elohim who are rebels? Go ahead. I disown all of you. Now I'm Beni Elohim. The world is yours. So most of the time when we think the devil says that the whole world is mine, we tend to think that it happened at the time that Adam fell. No, it happened at the time of Babel. That is when God disowned the whole world. And he says, everybody, okay, take them out. And then what he decided was, he said his inheritance would be Israel. So immediately after this, he started another thing. If we look at Genesis, after the Tower of Babel, what God did was, he called Abraham from the very place of the people that he has disowned. And what did he do? He said, I'm going to start afresh with you. Abraham, you are my inheritance. I'm going to get you to the place where those people who are more or less cooperating with the demonic world, where the men of renown, the warriors, the Nephilims, the Rephims are. And this is what I'm going to do. You are going to go there, and I'm going to make sure that is my inheritance. That is the place that I've chosen for myself. The rest of the world, they can go with the devil. I give everything to them. So that is the beginning of it, the beginning of Christ coming in. So what happened in the Tower of Babel was a serious thing. It was a harsh thing which happened, that God has to disown the world. And then to satisfy those who will say that, oh, the King James is right, let us move on to Deuteronomy 4, 19 to 20, which makes it clear again so that you see the worldview of the Jewish people as they understood what happened. 19. 4:19. At least thou lift up thy eyes unto heaven, and when you see the sun and the moon and the stars and all the hosts of heaven, you will be drawn away and bow down to them and serve them, things that the Lord your God has allotted to all the people under the whole heavens. So what God is saying is, he is the Lord of lords of the Jews. The rest he has allotted to the people of the world, which were not the Jews. So the idea is coming again. So when Paul says that salvation is of the Jews, those were the people that God has chosen because that is his inheritance. God calls Israel man's son. And then that is the way he started the whole thing, to start afresh. So he started with Abraham. Although when he started with Abraham afresh, one thing God did was he did not forget the world. So if we look at what he told Abraham in Genesis 12, he says, go from your country and your kindred and your father's house to the land that I will show you, and I'll make you a great nation, and I'll bless you and make your name great, so that you will be a blessing. I'll bless those who bless you, and him who dishonor you I'll curse, and in you all the families of the earth will be blessed. So God was trying again that, okay, you guys, Beni Elohim, you think you've won? I'm starting with Israel, and here I'm going to make sure that I'm coming back, that my images will come back. So that is exactly what God did. That although he disowned the world and he took Israel as his inheritance, he also still had a plan to use Israel to bring us back to him so that we will be able to perform exactly as he did. So if you look at the Old Testament, when they were conquering Canaan, God told them to eliminate all of them, men, women, everybody. At times we tend to think that we don't understand it very well. But if you look at it, he was eliminating the areas where the Nephilims were, where the Rephaims were. Those were the people who were referred to as, in the Old Testament, as before Noah's time, they called them the men of renown. So what it means is these people, again, cooperating with the devil directly, and that is why they become great and that sort of thing. So God told them, when you go there, eliminate all of them. And he sent the angel to come and lead them. And we know that the angel is Jesus. And if you want it, we could look at Jude 5, I think verse 6. That when Jesus took them out of Egypt, he ended up destroying all of them because they did not obey. And I wouldn't be able to go there because it's going to take too long. But if we look at it, when God acted, he acted in two ways. We know that no man can see God and live. Yet people saw God. What was happening here? Only the visible Yahweh could be seen, or at times referred to as the angel of the Lord, which was Jesus. So when Moses really wanted to see God in his glory, what did God do? He said, okay, I'll do something. Go and hide in Jesus, and I'll pass by and you see me, my back. Because if you see my glory, me, myself, you won't live. The only way that you can see me is through the visible Yahweh, the one who appears to you in a visible form, that he communicates with you, that is Jesus. So this is the way it goes. That's why God destroyed all of it. And as we look at Psalm 82, don't go yet. I think I don't want to preach long. My time is getting short. But what Psalm 82 is saying, if you go, you can read it. The divine God met what is still called divine counsel, that is the rebels. And what did God say? You guys have the whole world. Instead of making sure that things go on very well, we are not doing it. So now this is your punishment. I know I say you are gods, but you are going to die as men. So God is declaring to them that you guys, that's the end of you. So the end of it, that is coming. That we are all going to die like men. So they are all going to go to hell. That is when God made a declaration to the powers of darkness who rule over the world. So now let's fast forward. What happened? God, the idea of Israel was supposed to be the light of the world. He was supposed to show us the way to get to God. But they missed something. When God told them, Joshua's time, to destroy all the Rephaims, they left some of them. So the angel of the Lord got mad and left. He left, he was the one leading them doing the fight. Jesus was leading them doing the fight. But when they didn't, he left. So we know that some of them were left in Gath. That is when David eventually had to defeat them, the giants. David and his troops killed all of them before David's thing came in. But then Israel wanted a king apart from God. That's why Samuel was so sad when that thing happened. But God said, go ahead, give it to them, because they wanted to be like all the other nations around them. So what was happening? They were trying, in effect, to reject God. We are going back to Babel. We want to be like everybody else, not of God. But God's plan will not be defeated, because he said he watches over his word to perform it. So David came in, and Solomon came in, and what happened? Israel was divided based on disobedience, and instead of them being the light unto us, they started going back to worship the many Elohims, which were rebels against God, means the principalities and powers. That's why God hates idolatry so much. So they went in there and they failed. So when this happened, what did God do? God said, okay, I'm bringing a substitute. And that's why we see it in Isaiah, I think 9:6. Let's look at the place so that it will tie in with our Christmas and we have the picture. But the idea is, if you have this big picture, it makes it much clearer what was going on in the Old Testament behind the scenes. He says, for to us a child is born, to us a son is given, and the government shall be upon his shoulder, and his name shall be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. So in effect, Israel also failed. So what God said is, okay, that is fine. Now I'm going to give you a child who will be born, meaning that the child will be a human being, and a son is going to be given to you, meaning that that person was already there. So in effect, what God is saying is, I'm going to give you a divine human. And a divine human means that person, now human beings will can't do the job for me. So I have to bring somebody who is God and somebody who is human. And then the government shall be upon his shoulders. So the purpose of the images to rule, he is now going to take care of it. And his name shall be called Wonderful Counselor. To make it sure that we really understand what God is saying, that is a human being who is God, who is coming. He says his name is Wonderful Counselor, and he says this person is what? Mighty God. He's God. So that we understand very well that it's not an ordinary person coming. He's the everlasting Father. And then to make it sure that he's God, he equated to himself. He's the everlasting Father. So he's me. Basically, that's what he's saying. And the Prince of Peace. And he's the one who's going to bring peace onto the world. That all the trouble which has been going on, which the rebels of Beni Elohim have been trying to cause, trying to thwart my effort. Now this time I'm coming myself. And myself, the visible Yahweh, is the one who is coming. He will come not like an appearance and go away like during the Sodom and Gomorrah days when he visited Abraham. But this time he's going to come as a human being. So that is how Christ came in. And then when the time was due, what do we see? God orchestrated so that there was supposed to be a census. And because he has already proclaimed through Isaiah and other prophets that a person will have to be born in Bethlehem, God has to make sure that it happens that way. So they say Caesar Augustus, if I'm right, Gaius Octavia, probably Gaius, you were the one who then he made a decree. So Joseph had to go to Bethlehem, his birthplace. And that's where Mary was born. Jesus was born in Bethlehem. And then God also chose a very demeaning way. That is, he didn't even have a place to put him, so that they have to put him in a manger. And then, but at the same time, God sent angels to the wise men to come and give glory to the Son of God. That now the peace of God is now among men, that the Christ has come. This is the day. That is why we are celebrating this time. That when we see Christmas, we should not look at it like the way the world look at Christmas. We should look at it as the time that God himself stepped in to thwart all the powers of darkness, their efforts to prevent us being his under rulers or ruling through us, to establish his kingdom on earth. So that was the beginning. That is when peace between mankind and God was being established. That is when the rule of God, the kingdom of God was being established. That is when that he is going to have the government. Everything will be upon his shoulders. Jesus Christ will be in control. So when he says that we should rejoice, as the wise man did, that we should also rejoice that we are celebrating this day. There was a time that I saw something which moved around in the internet trying to tell us that Jesus wasn't born on Christmas. Yes, we know that. But we are celebrating the birth of Christ at the time that God stepped into the affairs of men. And that is what we are celebrating, to give glory to God. The time that God has decided to reconcile us to himself, to bring us back to himself through his own means. So this is what we should understand by Christmas. So it should be a time of appreciation, a time of thanksgiving, a time of praising God that he himself has stepped in to bring us back to what he originally had. May the name of the Lord be blessed. We know that Jesus, before he went to the cross, he instituted an ordinance, what we normally call sacrament, and that he said is a new covenant between us and him. The covenant that God started with Abraham, he was ratifying it, which is a new covenant in his blood. So what he said was, he took bread and broke it and said, "This is my body, which is broken for you." And then he took the wine and said that represents his blood, which is the blood of the covenant. That as we should do this. Always when we do this, we should remember him. So today is a special day that we have to remember Christ. That the person who is the ruler of the universe, who created everything, had to step down and come to redeem mankind. Why? Because we failed to do what God had for us. We decided to cooperate with the powers of darkness, but he has come to redeem us, and this is the covenant that is giving us, that when we do this, we should always remember him. This covenant comes with a lot of blessings that God has given us. So what I would say is, even as we take it, we should remember whatever you have that you want God to do for you. Ask God to do it, and believe that he will do it, and he will do that for you. Father, we want to thank you for your goodness. We thank you for this element that you've given, representing the blood and the body of Christ. Father, Lord, we pray for your blessings upon it as we take this, remembering what Jesus Christ has done for us. Help us, oh Lord God Almighty, to appreciate what you've done for us, that we will live our life to your glory. And help us, oh Lord, to be able to draw from the wells of salvation, that the benefit that you have in mind for us will be accrued. We bless you in Jesus' name. Amen.